being transparent in our work and our process, and therefore dealing with everything that comes before the panel publicly and in a transparent manner, we do think. But I want to urge South Africans to allow the panel to do its work so that we can conclude the work. Some of these things are becoming just an unnecessary distraction that we do not need. So with that, we will proceed to our candidates. We've got Advocate Kanyile, Advocate Khronye, and Advocate Simelane for today. We'll start with Advocate Kanyile. Please bring her in. Good morning, Advocate Kanyile.
Good morning, Minister.
Please switch on the mic.
Good morning, Minister, and good morning to the members of the panel.
Thank you very much. Welcome. I'm going to take you through the process that the panel will be dealing with in terms of the interaction between ourselves and yourself. I'll take you through the questionnaire that you have submitted to us. I hope you've got a copy. Do you have?
I've got a copy in front of me, Minister.
Yeah. We will take you through the questionnaire that you have submitted, that we sent to you for you to submit to us. Following that, we'll have a segment of questions with the members, but they can do follow-ups as I interact with you if there's clarity that they need. And then last section will be when we interact with you on the basis of public comments that we have received. We've sent them to you to look at and process. Advocate Nissan will be the lead person in that regard. We've allocated per candidate a person that leads on those interactions. Starting with section 1 of the questionnaire, it's your details. I will not go publicly or announce them, but they are correct as you've got them there. And I'll move directly. So I confirm that you are confirming these are your...
I completed the form and I confirm that the information is accurate.
Okay, thank you. Then moving into your qualifications. Take us through why your qualifications are important for this position and relevant to being an NDPP.
Yeah, this position requires a lawyer that's fit and proper, a lawyer that has a right of appearance.
Let me just ask the team to help me. Your mic doesn't seem to be directly. So we're going to battle throughout. Yeah, where it's positioned.
Is it better now, Minister?
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah. So
you don't have to switch it off, ne?
Okay,
it can,
I'll
you can keep it throughout even when questions are asked to you.
I'll do so, Minister. I've got a B.Juris degree and an LLB degree from the University of Zululand. When I was appointed to head the Free State as the Director of Public Prosecutions, I decided to further my studies, and I registered with the business school of the University of the Free State, and I obtained my MDP, which is a Management Development Program. It also deals with labor issues, issues of leadership. It also touches on the issues of audit. So that's what I did. I also obtained an LLM from the same University of Free State. Besides, the LLM was focusing on the multiple agencies in South Africa that are focusing on fighting corruption, to see what are the benefits and what are the challenges there. But it was an LLM where I had to do a research, but also do a lot of coursework. I also have a certificate from Duke University. This is a certificate that I got whilst I was serving as an acting director of public prosecutions in South Gauteng. I was appointed by the then National Director of Public Prosecutions to represent the NPA in the Department of Transport board. So the Department of Transport, it was Road Infringement Agency. It's one of the agencies under Department of Transport. So I served there as a board member, and that's when I got an opportunity to really go and study more about the role of board members, and I obtained that certificate from Duke University. Those are my qualifications. How are they relevant? If you look at the prosecutors really currently, we've got prosecutors, we've got master's degrees. We've got prosecutors who are very much knowledgeable. And it doesn't look good if you are a leader, but you are lazy to study. The cause really that was focusing on leadership and focusing on being a board member, it's also very critical, even though in the department, in the NPA, we've got Department of Justice that is responsible for really the functions of the CEO or accounting authority. It's still very critical as a DPP. It's very critical as a National Director of Public Prosecutions that you be able to interrogate the issues of performance, that you be able to interrogate the issues of the credibility of the information that the prosecutors are giving you when they say they finalize this number of cases. That issue of being able to play oversight on the issue of assets, being able to play oversight on the issue of finances and detect and prevent unauthorized expenditure, irregular expenditure, as well as wasteful expenditure is very, very critical. If you've got an organization that says it has performed very well, but there's an audit finding that says there's an issue with the reliability of that information, then you can't be proud of that information that you have given to the country by way of your annual report. So these issues are also very critical. The issue also of leadership, MDP was covering those issues. What does it mean to be a leader? Are very critical, because being a leader doesn't mean you need to be in an island. Being a leader, that doesn't mean really you need to be managing work on a daily basis. It means you need to have a vision, you need to have a direction, you need to be able to communicate to your team your vision and allow the team to go with you in implementing that vision. And so the issue of being a visionary leader is very, very critical. And the issue of how you also interact with your staff, developing those open channels of communication and being available, it's very critical.
We will come to that part around management and leadership. Let's first move to your positions you've held. So according to the records you have provided for us, you've been a district court prosecutor from 95 to 2000. And then you've been, is this at Pietermaritzburg?
It was at Madadeni,
It's at Madadeni.
in Newcastle. Let me apologize, Minister. I'm not young, so my experience is quite long, so I didn't want to give you 30 pages. So when I say district court prosecutor here, then I moved to senior state advocate. I was a district court prosecutor. I was also a regional court prosecutor. So I've gone through those ranks in the district court.
In the same
district. In the district court, I was even a control prosecutor before I was promoted to a regional court prosecutor.
Same district court?
Same district in Newcastle.
In Newcastle,
yeah.
Okay.
The regional court is in Newcastle and the district court is at Madadeni.
Okay. And then you moved to becoming a state advocate?
I moved to become a state advocate in Pietermaritzburg. Yeah.
And then is that separate to what you have listed here? Is it state advocate in asset recovery?
I was appointed as a state advocate in the High Court, in the General Prosecutions in the Office of the DPP.
Okay.
And then I was also promoted from a state advocate to a senior state advocate in the Office of Asset Recovery. So I did asset recovery whilst in the NPA. So you've got it, state advocate and also state advocate in asset recovery unit. At that time, I had to move from Pietermaritzburg to Johannesburg. I remember when I was moved, Willie of Mayor wanted to open an asset recovery office in Pietermaritzburg, and I was told to go and learn in Pretoria and then come and implement. But when I came and learned, Judge Raylene Keatley said, I don't want you to go back. So
No,
I
let's
ended
not
up
go
staying.
there.
Yeah.
Let's stick to what I want from you.
Yeah.
Confirmations. April 1995 to 2000. You were a district court prosecutor.
Yeah.
And control prosecutor and regional court prosecutor in. So you were
That's true.
at Madadeni and then you moved to Newcastle.
Newcastle.
April 2000 to 2005, senior state advocate.
Yes.
Now I've moved to your CV because your form doesn't give me proper dates.
Apologies for that. Yeah.
Yeah, DPP's office and asset forfeiture in Johannesburg.
In Johannesburg.
At what point were you in Pietermaritzburg? State advocate Pietermaritzburg, because your form says that.
Yeah, I was appointed in Pietermaritzburg in 2000. I was appointed in 2000. Then in 2002, that's when I went to the asset recovery office.
In your CV, it says May 2005 to 2007.
I'll have to look at both, otherwise I'll confuse the minister and I'll confuse myself.
Yeah.
I don't have a copy, unfortunately, Minister.
You
of
don't
my
have a copy
CV.
of your CV?
Apologies for that.
Okay, the team will make that copy for you. Because as I do, I cross-check your CV with the form.
Okay.
But the record of your experience is important to understand where you've been, at what point, because your work is linked to decisions that are made at a particular time where you've been.
If I can be finished with the copy, Minister, I can be
Okay,
able to
the team
assist you
will
better.
will come back to
Yeah.
that. I think we'll pack it because I do have quite some few things that I want us to correct if they need to be corrected there. The accuracy of information is important. Were you given the CV to look at it and correct it? Because I'd asked the team to send all of you the CVs
I was
before we
given-
published so that you can correct and make sure the accuracy of your CV.
I tried to really refrain from giving you a new CV. So what I did, and the instruction was, the CV is going to be made public, so I need to go through it and ensure that there is no information that is confidential that goes to the media. So what I did with my CV, I just removed the email addresses and the contact details of the persons that I've listed as references.
At that point, you didn't see these inconsistencies.
No,
Those
I
other
looked-
candidates did email and requested to change.
Minister, I thought the focus was remove issues that might infringe the privacy, your privacy, and the privacy of the persons that you have mentioned here. So I didn't really go back to my experience.
At the point of submitting the application, you were nominated, you were asked to provide a CV. Did you verify it?
I was nominated and I was asked to provide a CV, and I provided the CV. When I was approached again and nominated by other people, then I tried, if you can look at the CV, I tried to make it more polished and more brief in the format that you have in front of you.
Which format?
The one that you
This
have just
one.
given me, this one.
There's
Yeah.
two that I have, but
Yeah.
both of them seem to have
The same similar information. Yeah,
problems.
it was just the format, not the content.
It was just formatting. Okay, I'll come back to this
Yes.
because it is quite significant. That's why we ask for CVs
I
They are
fully
part of-
understand, I
yeah,
fully understand.
Okay. While they give you a copy, I need you to help me correct where and records, so
Okay.
that we have a correct record of your work history. So the team will do that. Let's move to the next one. We'll come back to this part. I'll park it for now. You a member of the Society of State Advocates of South Africa? Are you still?
I used to be the member when I was still in the prosecution. I don't remember saying I'm no longer your member, but I assumed that they are no longer deducting anything from my salary when I left the NPA.
What do you mean you assume? Because in membership, you would be a member, you know the condition of membership, that I'm a member, I belong to an NGO.
Let me,
So I know that every year, if either I renew my membership annually or I do it 5 years, and I know the conditions that if I don't renew my membership will lapse, I'll cease after 6 months without renewal, I know. So what is the condition? Why would you not know at
I
what
know.
point your membership will lapse or will not lapse, or whether you are a member or not?
I now remember, Minister, I now remember that when I was the DPP, I used to be invited by them to come and speak as a guest speaker. Even when I was in the FIC, they invited me to come and speak as a guest speaker. But I remember whilst I was in the NPA, I was teaching them about the issues of their responsibilities and the issues of the membership of senior people who are representing the management or the employer in the society. I think at that time I had already withdrawn as a member. I was no longer a member. So I can confirm that I'm no longer a member, Minister.
You are
I'm
no
only invited by them. I'm still very much visible. I've got a gift that they gave me last
No,
day.
invite,
Because they
advocate.
invited me to come and speak as a guest speaker. So I do support them, but I'm no longer a member.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I remember
can
even
confirm
myself,
that.
I get invited to go and speak to them, but because
I
I'm not
can
a lawyer.
confirm that, my Minister, that I'm
Yes.
no longer a
I'm
member.
not a lawyer, I'm not a member, but because of the position I hold, they'll
Yeah,
invite me to
yeah.
come and speak.
Yeah.
So what we were focusing on is your membership.
Yeah, no,
You are
I
not a
terminated my membership whilst I was still in the NPA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a member
I'm
of
still-
any organization?
Of any organization.
That's what the form is asking you.
No, I'm not a member of any organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you confirmed your state of health, that is correct. No issues that will impede your holding of office as a NDPP. Let's go to your area of work in terms of law. If you can take us through that.
Which section are you now on, Minister?
I'm on section 2, legal background. Where you stated, section 2, legal background, where you stated your area of work around criminal laws. Take us through all that.
Yeah. Minister, I've dealt mainly with criminal law as a prosecutor in the National Prosecuting Authority for a period of 23 years in all levels of courts, from the district court to the regional court to the high court. I also have experience of civil law because I've practiced as a practitioner in the Office of the Asset Recovery Unit. And our proceedings there are civil proceedings because we draft founding papers, we draft supporting affidavits, and we go and move applications ex parte. So I do have that background as a senior state advocate in asset recovery, also as a deputy director of public prosecutions. That was really responsible for checking those papers and ensuring that they are court ready. I also have experience on issues of corruption, mainly as a prosecutor, but also during my term in the in the FIC. When I was in the FIC, I played a very critical role when the country drafted the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. I was appointed to represent the members of the anti-corruption task team in that team. We are calling it a reference group that was assigned to review the National Anti-Corruption Strategy and ensure that it is of quality and it meets it's in line with the global standards and it's in line with the risk that the country is facing. So I chaired that reference group together with Mr. David Lewis from Corruption Watch. But I was in the FIC, I stayed up until the president appointed the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council to take over from the reference group. So I do understand the obligations really that are imposed on us when it comes to the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. I also represented the country in the G20, Anti-Corruption Working Group, and I took a project which I thought was very critical, the project of prioritizing asset recovery. And we were looking at it from an angle of enhancing asset recovery through public-private partnerships. Through public-private partnership. Why?
When did you participate on the G20 now as South Africa was chair, led by SIU? Or is it prior to that?
It was prior to that. I was still in government. I was still there in the FIC at that time.
Which year were you participating there?
I was appointed 2018 in the FIC.
Or for your duration
at that time, it was India that was the presidency of the G20.
During presidency of India.
During the presidency of India. So I represented the country there. Then on the issues of transnational organized crime, that's one area that I'm focusing on now in my business. And it started, I gained really that interest when I was still in the FIC, in the National Prosecuting Authority. I was responsible for the Africa Prosecutors Association. So I was a member and representing the office of the NDPP in the Africa Prosecutors Association, together with Advocate Machukweni, and also at a later stage, Advocate Machukweni was replaced by Advocate Mzinyati. So at that stage, we were trying to encourage countries to have laws that are focusing on combating money laundering. And South Africa was a bit advanced there. And so while we were advanced, we are also a member of the Financial Action Task Force, and currently was still the only member in Africa that is sitting in the Financial Action Task Force. So it was critical for us to be able to raise awareness, especially in Africa, on how critical it is to be a member of this organization. So I'm training a lot of people on issues of organized crime, but mainly meeting the recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force. So I've got experience in that area. I must say, Minister, even now in my business, through the EU Global Facility, I've trained more than 24 countries in Africa on the issues of FATF standards, focusing on IO6, immediate outcomes 6, 7, and 8, that relates to law enforcement agencies. Then in the FIC, I've got an experience also in the FIC in running the financial intelligence unit. And globally, we also have financial intelligence units. It's one of the recommendations of UNCAC, that countries establish financial intelligence units that can assist in the identification of proceeds of crime. So I've served in the FIC for a period of 5 years, 8 months, but during my tenure there, I was able really to receive the confidence of the global heads of FIUs. They appointed me as a vice chair. I served as a vice chair for a period of more than a year, and after that, they also appointed me to chair the Egmont Group. So it was really the global organization saying, we've got confidence in in your leadership. Yeah, so I've got experience of in the financial intelligence.
And where you say I chair, you mean yourself personally?
Myself,
eh?
I was
Not
chairing.
We're sitting there representing the country.
No, they don't appoint a person there to come and represent the country. We don't have any rotation. They look at you as an individual and say, we want you to be able to lead us.
Is that
yeah.
including the work that you did in UN Convention Against Crime and also on the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime?
In Egmont, we deal mostly with issues of transnational organized crime, issues of money laundering, but we also deal with issues of any forms of proceeds-generating crimes. Same as the FIC, it's focusing.
What I'm trying
Yeah.
to understand is, remember here we are looking at your knowledge, your participation,
yeah.
and your areas of law.
Yeah, I fully understand. Yeah,
That's why I would ask that question. So I know with us as South Africans and Africans, we normally use the plural word we as well. So I don't want you to make that mistake where you say we and I. So I need you to be clear so that the panel can see the expertise
No,
that you're talking about, that you say
that was
that you
me
have.
in my. Let me explain this, Minister, because the Egmont Group, it's a group of financial intelligence unit. They appoint a person who is in the financial intelligence unit, but they don't appoint a country. We don't rotate, we don't take turns. So they were looking at me as a person. Yeah.
Compared to in the G20 as well, because it's a country.
In the G20, the G20, I was approached by the office of DPSA, and they said, we think you can be able to do this as a person. So, and they approached me, and I accepted, and I got a letter from the Minister of DPSA appointing me to represent the country in the G20. Yeah.
Okay. No, I just wanted, because not all members would be familiar with how we've got members in the panel who are not in government. So they must have a distinction between, because in G20 you represent, but these others you are appointed directly to say.
Yes, yeah.
This is what, but your knowledge of being involved is not retracted.
Yeah, yes. Then in the Financial Advisory Intermediary Service Act, when I left the FIC, the Minister of Finance, I think a year later, appointed me to serve in the tribunal, in the Financial Services Tribunal. So I sit with other advocates and sometimes with judges in that panel, and we deal with those issues. It's mostly
You're still a member now?
I'm still a member now of the tribunal appointed by the minister. Yeah, we deal with issues when persons have been debarred, and they come and apply for the reconsideration of that debarment, and we'll go through the papers, even have a hearing and draft judgments. I think I've been involved in 6 matters because we're quite a big pool of advocates sitting there. I've sat in 6 matters and I've drafted 2 judgments.
Okay, that's good. Let's move on to your next area. I think we've dealt with your area of law prosecution. Have they been able to give you your copy, or maybe let's finish the management area. We'll come back to your experience because it links to prosecution. Your experience as management, you are indicating here, you've been in management level, both in terms of the Deputy Director Public Prosecution for 5 years, acting DPP South Gauteng, and DPP Free State for 8 years, head of FIC for 5 years. Tell me, how many
Minister,
people did you
where are you
manage?
now? I apologize. Where are you now, Minister?
Section 4, managerial experience. Section 4 of your question.
Okay, on page 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Minister.
Page 5.
Yeah.
How many people, more or less, have you been managing at FIC that were reporting directly to you, like as a head? How many people?
The EXCO, I think it's about 8.
EXCO is 8.
Yeah.
So you were the head
I was the head, I was the
So the o-
director. In terms of the act, the director is the CEO of the FIC, yeah.
Overall staff complement of FIC?
It's not a big compliment, it's about 300 people in the FIC,
300
yeah,
people.
yeah.
And then in the Free State, how many people you were managing as head, as the DPP?
As the DPP in the Free State, in South Gauteng, people were quite many. In the Free State, I think, I don't recall, Minister, but they were in the thousands, but not too many. Not as many as in South Gauteng. South Gauteng, when I acted as a DPP there for a year, it was
Yeah,
quite a
South
big
Gauteng
team.
is big. It's one
Yeah,
of our
South
biggest
Gauteng is
offices.
big. Yeah,
But we can say you've literally managed more than 300 people.
yeah, yeah.
Across,
South Gauteng, yeah, South Gauteng was quite big then, yeah, Johannesburg.
Okay. And then your management style. How would you describe your management style?
Minister, I'm that person who wants to say.
I'm asking you this
Yeah.
because you didn't answer it in the form. The form asked you to answer the number of years, number of people you've supervised, and describe your management style.
Yeah. My management style, Minister, I'm a manager who's quite involved and close to the issues. And you can't be close to the issues when you're not close to the people. So the open channels of communications is what I always advocate. I'm a person who is also visible. In the Free State, in Johannesburg, I would drive and go and visit the courts. But I'm also a person who is hands-on. I can just give you an example. In South Gauteng, I had an opportunity to deal with appeals, to lead the appeals section. And there was a time when there's a matter that's supposed to be sitting in court, there is no record. I just decided one day, I took advocates and said, let's go to that court and check what's happening. Being formal and wearing a suit, and we went to the strong room that keeps those files, and we cleaned it up for a period of a week until we knew which file is sitting where. But the lesson that we came up with was that we had a number of appeals wherein the persons had been found guilty, sentenced. Then they come and apply for leave pending the appeal. And they won't do anything to prosecute their appeal. If there are challenges with the record, they won't do anything to ensure that their record is properly transcribed and ready to go to court. And we had to have a list of all those cases, write letters to their attorneys because we picked up that gap. And had I not gone there with my team, I wasn't going to know. We were able to write letters to the attorneys of those persons and say, if you are not going to prosecute your appeal by this time, we are going to issue you with a notice of surrender. And we did exactly that. We issued notices of surrenders, and people were able to go and save. Those that were serious, we were able to assist them if they were saying, I'm still having challenges, I haven't in having the record transcribed, we'll assist them. But we also had a few cases where we couldn't do anything with the transcription of, or correcting of the record, where magistrate had died or had left the country. So I'm a person who's very much hands-on. I'm a person who believes that if I push you and say this needs to be done, I must also show that I can do it myself. Yeah, so I'm that kind of a leader, but I'm a kind of a leader who tries to be part of the team rather than thinking I must be in the island, because if you do that, you end up not knowing the challenges that you are that your organization is facing.
Yeah, I see you explain it as a leader who maintains consistent, under leadership section, consistent presence and actively engage with the team. I think that's what you just described now. Okay, let's move to the section 5, page 6, ethics and integrity. You are saying to us as a panel, you've never been subjected to any DC, nor suspended from any position. Can
That's
I confirm
correct,
that?
that's correct.
Okay. And there's not been any reporting in any legal body
No,
or any
not at all,
professional?
not at all, Minister.
And you've never been reported even when you
No.
were in NPA?
Not at all,
Nothing.
Minister. Correct.
Okay. And the next part of that section talks about your contribution in law and pursuit of justice. Can you take us through, take the panel through?
Where are you now, Minister?
Page 7, number 3. What would you regard as your most significant contribution to the law and the pursuit of justice in South Africa?
Okay. Yeah, Minister, let me start with the FIC unless you want me to start. I can start in the
Anyway,
prosecution
it's
before
your
I go
choice.
to the FIC.
We want, this process is also
Yeah.
to introduce you to the public.
Yeah,
Let them know who you are,
yeah.
what you stand for.
My,
That's
my,
what-
my
that's what it's
contribution,
about.
Minister, whilst I'll start with the South Gauteng. When I was in South Gauteng and acting as a director of public prosecutions, one senior public prosecutor came to me and told me about this project that they were running in Boksburg. It was a project focusing on diversions. Those persons who really end up facing prosecution because of their drug addiction. So there was a good project that was trying to really involve the churches and ensure that those persons are supported. And they go through a program being run by the church, they have their urine tested, because they are not really criminals, but they are getting involved in criminality due to drug addiction. So I took that project. After I learned of it, I went and visited the court, I visited the church, and I was satisfied that it was really running smoothly and it was in line with our vision as the NPA. And I rolled it over to other, I spoke to the senior prosecutors and to directors of public prosecutions. They were excited, and we rolled it over to Soweto and other areas in Johannesburg. That project, when I went to the Free State, in the Free State, I know it's still running. The CRC church is still involved in it. And it's really assisting. You just need to have a mentor, a person, whether it's a family member or a friend, who will support you and go with you when you take your urine test, be involved in the church, and we see that you are a changed person. After a period of 6 months, we're able to say we can withdraw charges against you. If you
a
are not
person
serious,
doesn't believe in church, is not a Christian, what happens?
if you don't believe in church but you are involved in some church activities, you can even
I'm
see.
saying if a person does not believe, is an atheist,
Hey, we never had that challenge, Minister.
did you ever ask?
I never asked, Minister.
Remember,
in
we
the
are a
program.
secular country.
I know. Yeah, we never asked those questions, and we never had a person that was saying, I don't want to be part of this program. It's something, Minister, that you can look into. It's in Boksburg, it's running. It's still running even now. I remember when I was still in the FIC, I've discussed it also with the current national director. In the Free State, it is still running. So I don't think there's anything that is perfect, 100% perfect, Minister, but it has a lot of benefits, and it's something that we
No,
can
I'm not denying the
enhance. Yeah,
benefits.
yeah.
Remember, I'm also one of the issues that I'm responsible for.
Mm.
Hence, the portfolio is called Justice and Constitutional Development.
Yeah.
So I've got to promote constitutional values, and one of the issues is that the right to choose religion
Yeah.
and religious practices is enshrined in the Constitution. So if a person is saying, that's why I had to check whether,
I'm with
and it's
you.
correct for you to say that no one has said.
No one really
"We
raised
have-
that
you-
issue.
You've never checked whether
Yeah,
the people
yeah,
do
I've
not, and
never
they've
checked.
never objected.
But also what we need to promote, Minister, when it comes to fighting crime, with the level of crime that we have in the country, we need to find other ways of resolving crime that works, other than saying we'll have backlogs at courts and we'll have cases
What do you
running
mean
for
by
10 months.
that?
And the issue of alternative dispute resolution, and also involving the entire community, the churches, the private sector in this fight. It's not the fight that we can win alone as law enforcement agencies.
Go into detail, I'm interested.
What?
I'm interested in that concept, finding alternative
Ways of
ways
finalizing
of fighting
matters.
crime. Yeah.
Yeah. One example is just that the systems are really different. In the US, 90% or more than 90% of the cases, they finalize them through your plea bargaining.
Through your?
Plea bargaining.
Okay.
Yeah, then you get a benefit. But we do the same thing in our country, but we don't have we are not recording the highest number of plea bargainings because our prosecutors, they tend to say, let's bargain, but still want the same sentence that they will give to a person who is not really
Even on criminal
cooperating or
matters,
supporting them.
I know there's work that is being done on civil, but does this apply
Yes.
on criminal matters?
It does apply on criminal matters. It does
And on
apply.
sexual offenses?
No, you can't. You don't. No,
You
no,
can't.
you can't. do
But
that.
on murder?
No, even on murder, Minister, you can't. I think there is a guide.
That's what I'm
there.
saying,
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah.
Because
Le-
you're sitting with victims, they are listening to you.
Yeah. Let me tell you,
Victims
Minister.
of crime.
Yeah. Let me explain, Minister. I'm happy that you have asked me to explain. In the lower courts, if you look at the cases that are sitting in the lower courts, and you look at the role, you will find that the prosecutors have placed 4 matters for trial. But on the day of trial, it's only 2 matters that are now proceeding. The victims are no longer interested. They are saying we are withdrawing or whatever. Or prosecutors end up doing mediation, or they end up doing diversion.
What type of
The-
criminal offenses will be those ones?
Those are the
Advocate.
Yeah, it will be your theft cases. It will be mine.
Assist us, because remember, not only are you sitting here as a candidate, but people are thinking this is going to be potentially our NDPP. And if you're not clear, you can send shivers down people's spines with the level of crime we have in this country, where victims are saying to us, we see our cases vanish in courts, allegation of prosecutors colluding with perpetrators of crime. That's why I want you to, when you make a statement in that context of high organized crime, gangsterism in this country that takes the lives of young boys, that you be articulative of what you mean by the sentences that you are making.
The cases, Minister, that I'm referring to are cases that are in the in the lower courts, in your district courts. Those will be your trespassing cases. This person was drunk and trespassed in this place. Those will be your cases of theft. This child stole from a cliques or stole from checkers.
Petty crimes.
The petty crimes. Your crimes of assault. The boys were playing soccer and they ended up really assaulting each other. It will be those petty crimes. So when it comes to petty crimes, we need to be able to find ways of resolving them. And in the country, we have a good diversion program wherein we are able to even involve social workers. But the challenge is we don't have a diversion program that's focusing on adults. So if we can have a diversion program that says if adults are involved in petty crimes, we will finalize those cases by way of a diversion. And there will be processes, there will be directives that explains what kind of cases can you not really divert, your repeated offenders, because you also don't want to send a message that you can steal every day and nothing will happen to you, you will be diverted. So there will always be exceptions to the rule, guided by what we see on a daily basis in court. But there are a lot of cases that are clogging the systems that we can finalize by way of adult diversion, if we can have that in our country. That we can also finalize and encourage prosecutors. I think we tend to challenge prosecutors a lot when they've reached a plea agreement, when it's something that is in the act that we can bargain. But you cannot say you are bargaining, but I still want to win. I still want to give you a same sentence. So those are the issues that we need to manage and ensure that prosecutors are able to finalize cases. And bargaining, Minister, doesn't mean now that there's a plea bargain. I'm now going to be scot-free. I'm not going to face a sentence of imprisonment. You are still going to face a sentence of imprisonment. If a minimum sentence is 3 years, you'll plea bargain and saying, I'm going to give you 1 year, 3 months because you have not wasted my time, instead of really having a lot of people in prison and kids who have no future because when they go for interviews, they are told that you have this record when you were still young, when you were 18 or 19 or 20. So it's something that we need to look at. But what are the benefits? The benefits, Minister, is that if we open up space in the lower courts, we'll then allow the lower courts to be able to deal with your assault, GBH, assault with an intention to cause serious bodily harm. If you look currently, even at the stats of the NPA, some of those cases are sitting in the regional courts. So if you open up a space in the district courts, you'll have your district courts dealing with assault, GBH, and what then happens when you have your district courts dealing with cases, trying cases, instead of focusing on diversions? I also propose that have courts that are only focusing on diversions. In the Free State, we had one that was run by a chief magistrate in Velcom. It used to be called a love court, just a court focusing on diversions, and you are not expecting them to do any trials. In the regional court, once the regional court is not dealing with assault GBH cases, then you have your regional court prosecutors dealing with your corruption, dealing with your fraud cases. So that's what I think we need to be doing. So by saying, let's do ADRM, alternative dispute resolution, and let's embrace the plea bargainings, I'm not saying let's really send everyone home and let no one face any consequences.
The other argument on that, and perhaps we'll come to it, I wanted to finish this, is that while we acknowledge that some of this diversion will work, but when you look at the statistics of repeat offenders, some of them start with petty crime and then become, and they would not have been, they would have been on diversion as young boys through social workers, as we do. But others, yes, can argue that if you take them to prison at an early age, you literally almost orientating them to crime. So it's both ways. How would you deal with that?
You balance the two.
As an NDPP, you're confronted with that situation. Yes, Minister of Correctional Services comes and say, please find ADRs and other mechanisms because our prisons are full. But there is a record from police who would say, but these people are repeat offenders.
Yeah.
And therefore you are making our life difficult as police because we have to chase these people. You release them, they come and commit, or they start with a small crime because they've not been punished enough. They go and commit a bigger crime, they kill.
Yeah. Minister, as I'm saying, you will never really find an absolute answer or an answer that resolves all your problems. You just need to keep on trying. But I've already explained that even you'll be able to come with directives because the NDPP is responsible for policy and directives. You'll be able to come with directives that's able to say for repeated offenders, we don't do mediation. I can't say repeated offenders. There'll be exceptions, and you'll also expect prosecutors to use their discretion, really looking at the facts of the case in front of them. But it's something that's happening globally, and with FATF, when they assessed us, Minister, they said 50% of the crimes in South Africa that we are dealing with are proceeds-generated crimes. Whether you commit theft or housebreaking or fraud, you do that. Even in murder cases, in some instances, we've seen people committing murder with an intention of really being paid or quickly benefiting from that will. So it's very critical when we've got 50% of proceeds-generating crimes to be saying, as a country, what is our biggest risk? And we adopt a risk-based approach. And we say, when it comes to corruption, we want to look good. We want more time in our courts dealing with corruption cases. When it comes to rape, we want to be focusing on those cases. Organized crime, sexual offenses. Instead of saying, everything will get a time, everything will run through court, you'll have a small case really running for 3 or 6 months, and it's a case that you can resolve by saying to the people, let's sit down, let's get a social worker, let's really fix your problem, your anger issues, if it's a man that is angry or it's a boy that is angry. But we need really to find other ways of addressing the backlog. If you read, I remember when I was a director of public prosecutions and I was sitting, acting director, and I was sitting with my management, and in the discussion it was the issue of a blame game, prosecutors blaming attorneys blaming the courts, blaming the police. And the one chief prosecutor from Joburg, Mr. Arno van Wyk, said, you know what, when I was cleaning my office for the purposes of my retirement, I found minutes of a meeting that took place 30 years ago. And the problems that were mentioned there are the same problems that we're mentioning now. So we cannot really address the current issues with the same strategy that we have been using 50, 40 years ago. And we need to be brave, Minister, to take those decisions.
Is this, maybe just you remind me of the case that was handled in the Free State of Free State University students that under your leadership, NPA withdrew the charges and opted for mediation. Do you remember that case?
The Free State University students.
Yes.
I remember that case. I remember that case, and I did do diversion. I agreed to diversion in that case. It was
Why you
students.
but do you think that was a best model to do with that diversion that you said?
I was proud of the
This was
decision.
racial issues,
Yeah, it was.
and we brought the black pastor with the black students and the white pastor with the. Am I having correct information of
I
that
brought
case?
what, Minister?
On the mediation, what did, maybe take us through what you did, so that you correct the records that I have. Maybe set the record straight on that one. What
Okay.
did you do on that mediation?
Okay, Minister.
Because I want to understand your approach to mediation.
It's an old case, so I'll tell you, and it hasn't been brought to my attention when I was given a list of matters to comment on as a result of the information or objections that came from the public.
No, it didn't come as
So
an
it didn't come.
objection.
But let me tell you what happened.
Your positioning on mediation triggered it in my mind, because I remember it very well.
Let me tell you, Minister,
It was in 2016.
it was in 2016, and in that university, we used to receive a lot of cases that were racially motivated. And they are still happening. There was also one recent one where one student was peeing on,
Yes.
on the food or what, lunchbox of another student. It's still happening. So in that, but I'm not talking about that particular case, but we used to get cases of that nature. A student being run over with a car by a white student, and there'll be a mess in the university. The university will close because the black students will say, what is the university doing about it? So in this case, it was a nice day where they were playing soccer, if I remember very well, if I've got a good recollection of those facts. They were playing soccer, it was a nice day, but then something happened in that soccer field, and there was a fight. But it ended up being a fight of a white person hitting any black person in front of him, and black people also doing the same, hitting white people. So a number of people were arrested, and they were brought to us. And Minister, even
When
the
you say
quality,
number of people, you mean in the students?
the number of students that were arrested. And Minister, it wasn't a decision of saying it's racially motivated, I'm not going to fix it. I engaged Legal Aid South Africa. In this case, I sat with Legal Aid South Africa. I went to the university with my deputies to understand what the university was doing to resolve these issues, because it was quite a number of issues that used to come to us. And the university was also doing the same thing. They were having disciplinary hearings and trying to speak to some of the students. The evidence there, Minister, it wasn't evidence that was reliable. Because if you were white, you will say it was the black people. Black people will say it was the white people. And people that were injured, when you go through the docket, the injuries were on both sides. So instead of really taking that matter to court and knowing very well that it wasn't going to go anywhere because of the quality of evidence in that case, I was happy to mediate. I was happy to speak to those students and say I'm withdrawing. And I did speak to the university. I consulted the university in that case. And let me tell you, Minister, one of the things that I also initiated in South Africa
Before we
in
move,
the
I
Free
want to
State.
come back to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go, and who was the complainant on the case? Because the complainant somebody opened a case. It was not both sides. It was one side
It was one side.
that
yes, on-
opened a case.
Yeah.
And in that process, when NPA decided to do the mediation, brought in both sides, but even at the withdrawal of the case, the complainant remained aggrieved.
Yeah, but Minister, you take a decision based on the law, based on the facts. Do you have good facts in your case? And what is your
But
law?
if a complainant does not agree with mediation and say, go to trial, why didn't you go to trial?
No, Minister.
Because they didn't agree to mediation.
I'm not aware of complainants that didn't agree to mediation. I don't remember that information, but I took
You
a
know they
decision
remained
not
aggrieved.
based on what the complainants were saying. I took the decision based on what my facts were saying in the docket.
No, I'm saying you took the decision knowing that the complaint, but you were aware that the complaint remained aggrieved.
There were quite a number of complainants. Minister, you can have one complainant registering a case is in a form of allowing the police to register a case docket. But through that investigation, there were quite a number of complainants. There were quite a number of people who were victims. So it wasn't one complainant. But Minister, we are talking about something that is very old, and as I've said, it wasn't brought to my attention. So it's not easy for me to really give accurate answers and say complainants were 5 or whatever. But what I want to convey to you, Minister, one of the things that I did in that province, because of the racially motivated cases that were happening there, you will get a case, young boys, severely beaten up because they've stolen from a farmer or whatever. When the matter is ready for trial, those boys are saying we're no longer interested. When you look at their faces, they are not even recognizable. They are no longer interested because there's been settlement. The accused person has paid them or something, whether it's 1,000 rands, then the matter is sorted out. But my focus wasn't only cases against Africans. It was also cases against white persons. If there were cases against persons, I will ensure that there is justice. And I had a number of white people in my office. They wouldn't have really allowed me to only really divert cases involving Africans. But I had a number of cases involving young boys who will be assaulted and they'll come and withdraw because I'm scared. We're staying at the farm. My mother is working there. I cannot really take this matter to court. So I had to appoint a dedicated advocate in the DPP's office to oversee these cases. I had to speak to chief magistrates and say to chief magistrates, appoint dedicated prosecutors who are going to focus on these cases and ensure that we've got justice, who are going to speak to the victims and explain their rights and ensure that we've got justice.
You advocate, you wanted to say something. I'll come back to it.
Yes, Minister. I just wanted to take this further and ask you about how you would deal with corruption matters in particular, where there is an offer to repay the money in lieu of the damage that has been done. I'm asking this against the backdrop of South Africans being tired of waiting and waiting for services, and then when somebody gets caught after so many years of them living off the money that was due to them, then they get offered that. But it also has an angle to it. Because some of the people who commit corruption and leave the country running away or are based outside, like your international organizations that we know were implicated in some of the corruption cases in the country, and they get away scot-free. But in South Africa, then it gives it a racial slant where people just feel, I'll up and go and continue to enjoy my money, or I'll up and go and just pay something towards this. And then there are other people who do not have the means, who do not have the muscle for legal representation, who end up languishing in jail because they cannot bargain. So I suppose it's a comment, but also wanting your views, because that's what has happened in this country, and that is what has affected the trust towards the NPA, where people actually feel there's some people who are above the law, whereas it's not that. Part of the challenge is actually in the plea bargain system that we have. What's your comment on that?
Yeah. Thank you, Advocate. Let me touch on this issue. When it comes to criminal cases, I've already mentioned we've got your alternative dispute resolutions. We can be able to say we're diverting these cases. When it comes to criminal prosecutions, we've got your 204, where we say you have come with clean hands, you are prepared to cooperate and support the state, either by giving evidence of the modus operandi that is involved in this crime, implicating others, going to court and testifying against other accused that are involved. And if you do that with honesty and you are frank, we are going to ensure that you are protected and you are not prosecuted. And if we do that with persons, there's nothing wrong if we do that with companies who are also saying, especially companies who are self-reporting, companies who are saying, I haven't been found guilty, I'm not under investigation, but I'm coming with clean hands to say this is what I've been involved in, and I want to speak to the state, and I want to undergo the corporate alternative dispute resolution. But the process is what the people will complain about. If you look at international best practice, in this process, when you deal with corporate alternative dispute resolution, and there's a research that has been done by the South African Law Commission on this issue, advising the country. They say it should be companies that are operating cross-border. It should be companies that are self-reporting. But if you negotiate with that company still needs to really give information on what they've been doing, what measures they've put in place, governance measures that they've put in place to ensure that there is no repeat of what they've done. Cooperating means if they staff members or servants in that company that have been involved in corruption, directors who have been involved in corruption, they must come clean and they need to be prosecuted. So coming clean means the advantage that the companies will get is that it won't be a company that is going to be an accused in the case, but it will be a director or directors that were involved, or the staff in that company that were involved. Then over and above prosecuting those who were involved, you are able to say they have paid back to the state. So it will look very bad for us if we say you are not going, no one will face prosecution, then pay. But also the issue of oversight, having that process, having a body, it can even be a body of head of SIU, a body of a representative from the AG's office, forming a panel to say we are going to play oversight of that process. So that it's not only a decision of the prosecution, but it is a decision that is endorsed by that body. But it's very critical that we be open to these mechanisms, because everyone, if you look at the way that we are fighting crime now, we're not only focusing on taking people to court and you sit with a case for 12 years because it's not moving and you are not taking a decision. And we're sitting with a number of those corruption cases that have been on the roll for 12 years or whatever. So if you can finalize a person by way of asset recovery and be able to recover assets, that's where you hit the criminals the most, because you are hitting them on their pockets. But it shouldn't be. You must be able to also see, what is this company making? on a yearly basis, because it shouldn't be a system where a company now is even budgeting for a fine. We'll be corrupt, we'll do anything, but we'll save this 5 billion so that if the prosecution wherever comes, we'll be able to pay a fine. So you must also look at what they are making so that you really hit them hard where it matters the most. But it can't be you just pay, but you don't face prosecution.
Thanks. Good morning, Advocate. I wanted to check with you these measures that you so eloquently are talking about, particularly the ADR system as you explain it. How do we, in your imagination, build a buy-in? We're sitting with two poles of societal perspectives of our court system, whether our court system is actually assisting in the encouragement of the crime dens, or whether it is actually helping us resolve the crime situation in South Africa. And we're also sitting with a society in which the trust deficit is growing in our court system. It is not attractive, and I believe you would agree with me that the NPA's major role is to ensure that it improves its outward look and also improve the confidence levels of society in its work, and whilst upholding the rule of law. Now, when you don't have these things speaking to each other, society's then perception of the scenarios becomes something else. How do we have a buy-in of that part as part of the rebuilding, if you can call it that, of the image of the NPA and increasing confidence in it from society's perspective?
Yeah. I've already touched on the issue of oversight, that if we can have oversight of processes like the OC, ADRM, it will really assist. Issues of transparency, we need to be transparent to our people about these processes and raise education, continue educating people, and people need to know that we are not in an island. We learn from other countries. If there are other countries who are doing things better than us, we need to learn from them, especially if those things are working. But also the credibility of what we are doing. People will complain if it's me today, I'm involved in crime, and there's a plea bargain, and they see me tomorrow, I'm at home. But if it's a person that is just owning a tuck shop, a small tuck shop, a person who is not profiled, of a high-profile nature, if you've got systems and there's credibility in that process, you don't have one person really paying 5,000 and getting scot-free, and the other is not getting that same benefit. People will compare. You'll also hear in Parliament, they will say, with so-and-so, you did this, but with so-and-so, you didn't do it. So you need to ensure that there's credibility in your processes, there's integrity in your processes, and there is oversight. And there's also guidance. Guidance to prosecutors is also very critical. And oversight is also there with the minister. When the NDBP really issues directives, there needs to be concurrence with the minister. So, but education is critical. I've seen it with sexual offenses. Sexual offenses, we are seeing a number of victims now reporting, because SOCA has been really focusing on issues of education, educating people about their rights and encouraging people to come forward and report.
Prof, Mike, and then we'll come to you, Mfundisi. I see other hands. Yeah, we'll come to you. Let's start with Prof.
Thank you very much, Advocate Khanyile. First, to clear this one, of the roles and positions that you mentioned, representing the country or participating in international organizations, Which ones were you there because of the position you occupied? And the ones where you were invited because of the weight you add there, even when you are not in a position? Because sometimes you are sent to some of these because the country is a state party, therefore needs a representative.
Yeah. I think I've clarified, Professor, on the Egmont Group, that I wasn't sent in the Egmont Group. I was appointed as a person. They were looking at me as a person. In the G20, I can't say the FIC is really playing a leading role on issues of corruption. You've got the NPA, you've got the police and whatever. They came to me because of their role that I had played. Also the public-private partnership, the SAMLIT, if you have heard of the SAMLIT, the South African Anti-Money Laundering Integrated Task Force, where you find the FIC, NPA, the banks. It's more than 20 banks that are there, and we are about sharing and exchanging information and ensuring that what the FIC is giving to law enforcement agencies, it's better, it's consolidated, it's actionable. So I think it was both being in the FIC, because I wouldn't have really went there if I was outside of government. It was both being the FIC, but it was also both the initiatives that I've come up with in ensuring that there is coordination in the public sector in fighting crime. I also championed the establishment of the Fusion Center, which is a public-public collaboration still existing and sitting in the FIC. When we started, it was during COVID, and I was able really to say, what are we doing? And the president was also asking, what are we doing? And I said, there's a Fusion Center that we were really thinking of, or we're not even thinking of, because we had already broken walls in the FIC to allow a space for the Fusion Center. And I said, there's a Fusion Center, let's use this, let's enhance the regulatory reports that the banks are sending to us in order to be able to fight corruption better. Then in the Africa chapter of the Global Coalition, I was appointed as a person. I had already left government, and they appointed me to chair the Africa chapter of the Global Coalition. I'm the chair now, I'm the global chair of the Global Coalition to fight financial crime, and I'm not in government. I've been appointed as a person. I'm also a chair of the advisory board of open ownership, which is really focusing on the issues of beneficial ownership, knowing who's behind the company, who's behind trust, people who are really rich, but they are poor and they are not having any names linked to those entities. So I'm sitting there, and they approach me as a person. I didn't apply for all those positions that I've just mentioned.
A follow-up to that, you have outlined your experience and what you are doing. But what you are applying for is not the past or present. It's very relevant. What would be those things, 1, 2, 3, that would be so central in repositioning the NPA externally and internally? You've been an insider at some point. Now you have the distance of looking at it from the outside. And what's the problem that you would be trying to address?
Yeah, I haven't been totally from the outside. I'm still very much involved with law enforcement agencies. As I've said, I've trained in my business, I've trained more than 23 countries on the immediate outcomes of PATAF relating to law enforcement agencies, from regulators to law enforcement agencies, police, prosecutors, financial intelligence units. Currently, I'm involved in the training. You have heard of the funding coming from Germany that is being administered by the Hans Foundation. I'm one of the consultants there.
I
and
mean
I'm
inside
involved
within the NPA.
Within the NPA. I'm one of the consultants there, and I'm training prosecutors from even starting developing the the curriculum to drafting the manuals. It's the work that I've been actively involved in the NPA. So even once I was in the FIC, I enhanced the relationship of the FIC with all law enforcement agencies. I signed MOUs with the Revenue Service, and we were able to assist the Revenue Services in increasing their orders, because we're sharing information with them, and they were saying, but we get this information sometimes when money is no longer in the bank account, and I said, I'll trust you with my information and you'll do your own analysis, and the recoveries went up. Same as I had a number, even with the Office of
So
the
what's
Auditor
your
General.
vision?
I had a relationship, I had a MOU with
I
Office of
think the
Attorney.
problem here
Yeah.
is that we have not gone to the section that deals with the work.
Yeah.
Because it was a bit of a discrepancy. Maybe let me go there.
Okay.
So that it helps to recap, because ordinarily we would have finished that part, so that all members know, including this work, because we want to come to it. Maybe let's go back to your CV. In terms of taking us through, did they give you a copy? You've
I've got a copy.
Yeah, because what we wanted to understand is your track in terms of working. Because if you look at your CV, and I'll come to members, they must just keep their questions, we'll come back to the matter. It said, and these are the corrections so that we can have correct record of your profile. April 1995 to 2000, District Court Prosecutor, Matadini, Regional Court Controller, Prosecutor, Newcastle. This is in the 5 years. April 2000 to 2005, which is 5 years, Senior State Advocate DPP Office and Asset Forfeiture Unit, Johannesburg. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
2005 to 2007, Deputy Director of Public Prosecution, Asset Forfeiture Unit.
That's
I take it is in Johannesburg.
It was in Johannesburg, yeah.
Then 2007, promoted to Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecution.
Yes.
Where is this?
It was NPS. I left
NPS.
asset recovery and I went back
Okay.
to National Prosecuting Service.
Okay. 2010 to 2011, 1 year, Acting Director of Public Prosecution, South Gauteng.
Yes, yes.
Okay. 2015 until NDPP appointed, okay, Acting Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution, head NPS.
Yes.
So you acted until what time here?
I acted until I was appointed in September 2011 to the Free State as a DPP, no longer an acting DPP now. It was a
But
permanent.
it doesn't make sense. Because you've got 2015, and you're saying until appointed. I couldn't understand. Look at your CV there. June 2015,
Oh, yeah,
until,
yeah.
in brackets, you're saying until NDPP appointed. Then you're saying you were acting Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution. But you were appointed Director of Public Prosecution in 2011.
Minister,
So you were Free State DPP, and then you were appointed acting Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution in head office during the time you were in the Free State as DPP.
yeah, Minister, that's not accurate. It should reach 2010 to 2011. It's not accurate. I apologize for that. It should reach 2010 to 2011. If you can read it, I'm sorry to even say that, in conjunction with this paper. I'm sorry about this. Mr.
Okay. So 2010,
To 2011.
2011.
Yeah. Yeah.
that acting Director of Public Prosecution South Gauteng is
yeah,
the same.
Yeah.
And then 2011 to 2017, Director of Public Prosecution
In
Free
the
State.
Free State.
And then
January,
2018 to
just January.
2023,
Yeah.
direct. When were you in Pietermaritzburg? Because your form talks about you being in Pietermaritzburg.
Minister, yeah, may I request that we finish with this? You said we'll finish with it if you don't mind. Can we finish? Can we come back to this at the end of the interview?
No, the reason why I had
Okay.
to stop, remember I parked it earlier,
Yeah.
so that they give you a copy.
Yeah.
But the questions that members are posing,
Yeah.
it's about your career. Because we base our question with your experience. Remember, we're looking for a national director of public prosecution.
yeah.
We're looking at the experience of national, which provinces you've worked. Do you have a footprint of understanding NPA broadly, or are you based on that? So it's important as part of our questioning. If you can see where Prof was going, that's why I stopped him, because we had not done this. This is basic. And that's why this information is provided for us upfront, for us to prepare. And I was saying to the candidate yesterday, for lawyers, because you know as a legal person, if you submit something, it's a record. When you appear in court as a lawyer, what you submit to the court is a record of what you are saying. You have signed the form at the back, confirming it to be accurate and correct. Now, I'm picking up these discrepancies because these are the documents that helps us to prepare for the interview, to ask you questions, to verify, because we're looking not only for you to tell us, we want to understand your leadership style, want to understand the type of person. NDPP position is a very serious position in this country. National Prosecuting Authority is a very, very critical institution, not only in the justice system, but in the country. Now, South Africans expect us, when we do this process, to be diligent and to pay attention to detail. And my expectation is that when you sit here as a candidate, you must pay attention to detail. And a basic thing is a CV. The form itself as well. Because I looked at the form, I found these problems. I couldn't understand. I'm going to the CV, I'm finding the problems.
Minister, let me
And
apologize again.
you
Yeah.
prepared for the interview.
I've prepared for the interview.
You've looked at your CV, what you have said to us in your CV as part of your preparation.
Yeah,
Or that
Minister,
was not
it's not
considered?
an excuse, but I've said it. I've said it that I was asked to forward a CV, and I forwarded a CV to people who nominated me. The one that I cleaned up was this one. If you look at
But
this
it's
one,
not
but what I
cleaned
also
up,
did,
Advocate
Minister, it's my fault. I thought my experience, the positions that I've occupied, it's going to be a full page in the NPA itself, 23 years. So if you look at what I've done, I've just said district court prosecutor. I didn't even cover the control that I was talking about. Even the senior public state advocate, I didn't cover a junior. In the NPA, you wouldn't just be appointed as a senior state advocate when you haven't been a junior. And I was appointed as a junior state advocate in Pietermaritzburg during this period, 2000. But in Pietermaritzburg, as a junior state advocate, I was promoted. I started as a junior in Pietermaritzburg. From Pietermaritzburg, I was sent to Pretoria to come and learn more about asset recovery so that I can go back and open that office. If I were to be given an opportunity, Minister, because I don't want my 2 hours to be focusing on this and I end up not selling myself adequately, can I be given an indulgence to really give more information or details on this?
Advocate
Because,
Kanyile,
yeah,
we are the panel who determines how the interview process goes. Your CV is what sells you,
that's true,
and
Minister.
currently it's inaccurate. I'm not using what is not in front of me. I'm using what you provided to us. When you were sent to nominate, you were asked, please complete this and sign it. And I'm saying, as a lawyer, you know the minute they say, look at this and sign, a signature represents you confirming accuracy of information. And I didn't go to anything outside. I would have found your profile in others. I'm looking at what you have provided to us. And I'm simply saying, I'm going through on page 2 of your form. District Court Prosecutor, I've gone to the number. State Advocate Pietermaritzburg Senior, you didn't. Others you have put time frames. This one you didn't put time frame. It's either you were in Pietermaritzburg or you were not. But let me tell you why it's important for us to look at the process. Sometimes you find in the system, there's incidents that happen at a particular time. And if an individual has been there, we have to put it to you, questions that relates to that particular office at that time. Like I was asking you about the case with the Free State because you were head at that time. So that it clears my mind. You answered me, I'm clear, I'm fine.
I'm with you, Minister.
You don't want panel members to leave and say, you know, there's a time where in this court, in this area, certain things happened.
I'm fully with you, Minister.
So you understand why it's important, the record. Because we've got to ask you these questions. But for an NDPP, because we've got to convince, I've got 2 of your CVs, by the way. I've got the reworked one, where it has more nice adjustments. I've got, actually it's 3. I've got what is called profile with your picture. And then I've got your CV that they used as nomination. And I've got the form. And the reason why the panel decided to develop a form was that in case there's information we're looking for is not provided for in the form, we should be able to say, at least the form has closed the gap. Let's go even, because if you look at the form, Advocate Kanyele, you'd have on 2, it will ask you for chronicle particulars of your employment since leaving school. Yeah? And then it will go again. There's a section where it also again speaks about your experience as a prosecutor. So here as well, these forms are not a mistake. They're meant to assist the panel to be able to do its work. So you can see here, you've got started as a prosecutor, you've explained all that, moved into Pietermaritzburg. You actually you are an admitted attorney at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, practiced as an advocate at Pietermaritzburg High Court, based in the DPP's office, Pietermaritzburg. We're looking for that information.
I hear you, Minister.
Because you were in court as well,
Yeah.
doing matters here. Because we need to understand what is your record as a prosecutor. So you understand. And that's how I would say moved into. So that's why there will be sections like that in terms of understanding. So you concede that your forms are not going to assist. I'm not so sure when you say you want to deal with it later, how do you want to deal with it later? Because after our session, we can interact with you, would be done.
No, I was thinking that maybe you want to hear more about me.
Beyond your
Beyond my CV. So I wanted to focus on that other than what we have just picked up here, which I admit that is it's something that I should have really paid more attention to. So I wanted to really focus more on focusing on your responding to your questions rather than focusing on
But these are
the
our
CV and the
questions.
qualifications. Okay.
These are our questions. What were you doing in Pietermaritzburg, and which years were you in Pietermaritzburg?
In Pietermaritzburg, Minister, I was a state advocate prosecuting cases in the High Court, and I've got a record of really securing convictions in all my cases whilst I was there. But I then left Pietermaritzburg and went to the Office of the Asset Recovery Unit of the NPA. From Asset Recovery Unit...
Which years were you in Pietermaritzburg?
In Pietermaritzburg, it was year 2000. I was there from year 2000 till I was there for year 2000, Minister. until I left and joined the Johannesburg office as the deputy, as a senior state advocate doing asset recovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on and leave that one. I think we'll leave it at that point. Under financial disclosures,
Yes, Minister.
page 8, section 6. You've got Boma Educational Trust Holding. You are saying you are a director,
Yes.
no interest, meaning that you don't gain remuneration and only receiving board fees
Board fees,
for attendance. Africa Financial Crime Dialogue, it's an NPO,
Yes.
it's based here in the country.
It's based here in the country, and since its registration, we are still really working on what we intend to do, is focusing more on training, but it hasn't been really operational.
Or you are a co-founder
I'm
of
a
it?
co-founder.
With
I'm
who?
a co-founder.
Who are the people who with?
I'm a co-founder with Mr. Roy Melnick of, he's also having a forensic company in Rotterport. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's just the two of you?
FCRMC, and it's Elliot Tanner, Mr. Elliot Tanner. Mr. Elliot Tanner is also focusing more on issues of financial crime, and is having a business that is coordinating webinars on financial crime globally. Yeah, we had Alex Matole as part of the team when we started, but she's no longer part of us. Yeah.
So currently you are the three
We are three. Yeah.
members of that NPO? Okay. And, okay, so no new, it's also training?
It's
It does-
focusing on raising awareness training
or
webinars.
awareness.
Yeah.
So it has been active? Its activities are what?
The activities, let me give the background. We picked up that there are issues that are having an impact on Africa, because every Africa country, when it's assessed by FATF, it ends up being grey listed. So we did a study to check what are the common denominators, what are the areas that leads to Africa going through the grey listing. So after identifying those topics, then we went to law enforcement agencies, to NPA, to the police, to Financial Sector Conduct Authority. We spoke to the regulators so that we get their support. We launched it with Gibbs University. After launching it, we had an issue now of how do we take this further without funding, because we cannot use money from our pocket. Then we felt it will be good if people are giving funding and they know that they are giving funding to a structure, because the support that we got from Gibbs, it was a support of just giving us a venue and giving us tea, and we bring people. So we wanted to take it further, even approach business against crime, and be able to say, let's get a sponsor or a number of sponsors who will say, we'll give you a venue, we'll really give you support, whether it's lunch or whatever, so that you do this for Africa. We are not doing it for us to gain anything. So we ended up registering it. It has just been registered recently.
And it's got funding?
We
What-
don't have funding
it
at the
hasn't
moment.
received any funding?
We haven't received any funding. The funding that we are receiving, it was the funding in kind, like the one that I've mentioned from Gibbs University, to say we are going to give you a venue. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's, this number, it's registration, so it's registered this year,
It's now
2025,
registered, yeah,
with
because
Department
we are
of Social
looking into
Development.
growing it, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you have not submitted your annual reports as yet? It will
No,
be due
no, it
next
has
year?
been recently, yeah.
Okay, let's move, and then you are a director of Langalihle Consulting?
Yes.
That's your business, the one that you
That's
are now
the-
a consultant
Yeah,
at
yeah,
NPA?
yeah. But I'm
Okay.
also doing a lot of work through my company, focusing on training. Like I've mentioned, the training that I'm doing through the EU Global Facility. Yeah, focusing on FIUs and law enforcement agents.
No, that's fine. And you have indicated in the report that should you be appointed, you will relinquish all the responsibilities?
Certainly, Minister.
Yeah, that's what you have said. I wanted to get into that. Just one thing that I need to go on record on. In your reference, can you explain how Dr. Masondo relates to you? In which capacity?
Dr. Masondo was was a deputy minister in National Treasury when I was in the FIC. So I worked very closely with him. So that's the reason I had him.
Yeah, it's based on your work as FIC.
As the FIC, so he
Yeah,
could
I need to
testify
put it
on my
in
work
record
as the
because
FIC.
Dr. Masondo is a political figure.
No,
And NDPP position is critical.
yeah.
And therefore, we do not want to create cloud. That's why I wanted you to be able to clarify the relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
It's on the basis
It's
that
on the basis of that.
you were
yeah.
appointed FIC head
And I wasn't
being-
reporting to anyone in the FIC, so I was interacting with the minister and the deputy
and the
minister.
deputy minister. And that's the context of
that's-
him
yeah,
being in
that's
your
the
CV.
context, yeah.
Okay. I think that's important for us. Let me move into so that I can open for other colleagues. One of the issues that we ask is that you've seen being even in training of the NPA, looking at where it is now. What difference will you bring? What vision do you have of the NPA? And how will you be able to improve the situation that we have?
Yeah. Minister, I'll start. I think I've already covered the lower courts, Minister. I don't want to go back on the lower courts. Partially, I've also covered the regional courts. But if you also focus on the regional courts, Minister, my concern on how the law enforcement agencies are performing. I'll just give you an example, and it's information that is in the annual report of the FIC, of the NPA. You'll see that when I'm going to give examples with murder cases. Those are the cases that are also tried in the regional court. You'll find that the NPA is focusing more in their report on the conviction rate, which in my view it's high. And when you look at the conviction rate and you try to unmask it and say what lies behind the conviction rate, you'll see that it's a number of cases that are reported and are undetected. And from the number of cases that are detected, it's a few number of cases that result in a conviction. If you look at your murder cases, you'll see it's about 75,000 murder cases in a year. If you look at the cases that have been detected, it's about 43,000. If you look at the cases that have gone to court where you talk about the conviction, it's sitting at about 1,006. But same as with rape cases and other cases, we focus a lot on a conviction rate, which is good because victims of crime will want to know that if I take a decision to go and report this matter to the police and take a decision to testify, what are my prospects of really winning in this case? And they define success through conviction rate, but that could not be the only indicator. For me, it is very critical that we don't brag about the 10. It's a good conviction rate of 95%, you'll get 84, whatever, but it's a good conviction rate of 10% or even less than 10% of the cases that have been reported. Then you are not really saying you are delivering quality service to the people by doing very well on 10% or even 4 or 5% of the cases that are reported. And it's not the NPA problem, it's the criminal justice value chain problem, starting with ensuring that when we deal with these cases, we focus more on quality investigations. When we say to the country, we've arrested a person is facing prosecution, we know that in 3 months, in line with the norms of standards that have been set by the JP, we are ready to say to that person, plead to the charges against you. Instead of bringing persons to court, and they lose their jobs, they lose their positions. After 3 or 4 years, we say charges against you are withdrawn. Sorry. So it's very important that we focus on investigations and we bring more of these cases to the system, even if we can have a conviction rate of 70% and say we are successful, but it's more cases that we have taken to court. It's also what has been covered by ISS in a number of their papers. South African Law Commission is also touching on it. There are countries who will tell you that from the cases that have been reported, it's 50% of those cases that end up with a conviction. So we need to focus on that, Minister, and ensure that we don't have too many withdrawals that are in our court. And when we say we are going to court, we know that our investigation is complete, not that we bring cases for trial, then we investigate, and then say, sorry, go home. We are not ready. So, and it's not even those issues. In some cases, we even proceed and start a trial, and we get embarrassed when the judges are saying 174 discharge. So the quality of investigations is something that I will really ensure that I prioritize, working closely with the police, and also sending that message when you look at the indicators.
Can
because-
I ask in particular on that one? The current structure of NPA is such that the DPPs are the ones that drives prosecution, and also reporting to the DNPP responsible for prosecution currently is acting Mzinyathi.
Yeah.
Now, as NDPP, where do you come in? At what point with these issues that you're talking about? Because it's not coming out. It's as if now you will be at the DNPP position, DNDPP position in how you're expressing. Because, and also, wouldn't you end up being seen as interfering with the work of the DPPs and also the DNDPP?
Yeah. Minister, it's very critical to give DPPs their autonomy and their independence. It's very critical that DPPs be able to run with their offices without overreach from the NDPP. But you need to have the NDPP that is really visible, that can be able to intervene. I can't sit and say, I'm the NDPP, I trust that things are going well in the Free State. I'll use the Free State because I'm coming from there, not because they are not doing well. I need to be able to intervene. I need to be able to give directions. So using the powers, the Act says the NDPP exercises overall control. That means the buck stops with you. You ultimately, you are responsible. When people are asked, you can't say, let me go and ask the DPP. You know the high-profile cases that have attracted a lot of media coverage, cases that really, if you lose them, you'll know everyone will say, these people are wasting our time. So you need to be able to support the NDPPs and say, give me a copy of the docket and come and brief me. You need to be able to intervene and say, put more people in this team. So I don't believe in that. It's not only the issues of the DPPs. If you look at the structure, and it's something, if I were to be appointed,
No,
that
the
I will
issue I
ask
was
that we look
asking
into. Yeah.
is, wouldn't that be the role of the DNDPP? Because the DNDPP responsible for prosecution should be able to manage in that context. So what becomes the role of the DNDPP?
The role of the-
Okay, maybe
Yeah.
phrasing the question differently. Because the NDPP will decide on the DNDPPs that he has, will you have DNDPP prosecution if you are appointed?
I'll definitely have the NDPP prosecution. That's the biggest unit in the NPA. But the NPA is so huge, Minister, for you to say, I'm going to fold my hands and wait for the
No, I'm not
Deputy
saying you
National.
fold your hands. I'm just trying to give me
Yeah.
a sense of how things would be in understanding the role of the DNDPP prosecutions and DPPs in the province.
Yeah.
Remember,
We-
the DPPs as well will have their deputies. It's full complement. You've been.
I've
Full
been there.
it's staff of 300. They're working. And I'm not saying that the NDPP has to be hands-on. No.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to understand the hands-on approach
Yeah.
in how it's being done versus the role. As I said earlier on, we have public that are listening. We have staff members of NPA listening to you.
Yeah.
So that's why the things must come out clearly, so that as panel, we're not seeing as if we do recommend you or do not,
Yeah.
having been prejudiced and not asked the right
I wouldn't
questions.
take over the responsibilities of the Deputy National Director. The Deputy National Directors are there to support me in decision-making. They are there to ensure that we've got a credible NPA that is performing well and that is respected by the people, that prosecutes with no fear or prejudice. But I will be visible and I will intervene. I will even speak to them and say, if I have to ask them to go and get me that case and say, I needed that docket, but I'll be visible and I will intervene if I have to. So that's very critical, Minister. Oh, I was on a question that, Minister, you asked me. We're talking about my vision for the NPA. Can I move on and go back to that question now, Minister? So I think I've covered the number of cases now that are in the murder cases and the problem that I'm having with the conviction rate. Then, because it drives a message that deal with the easy cases and the ones that are difficult, you can look at them after 3 years or whatever. But also the support of prosecutors all over is critical. We've got good prosecutors in the NPA. We've got intelligent prosecutors who would have been at the bar, but they are still in the NPA because they are committed to saving the people of this country when it comes and the victims of this country. But they need to be supported. We have had cases, Minister, where prosecutors have been killed. We have had cases where a prosecutor is driving to the office and the prosecutor is killed. So we need to ensure that we support them in a manner, the same way that we are looking at supporting victims of crime by ensuring that they've got rooms where they can sit instead of sitting with accused persons. We need to support them by ensuring that our courts are safe. And when there are threats, we are able to really provide them with security. But I'll now go to the dedicated courts. We are saying we want to prioritize corruption. We've got the SCCU that is doing exceptionally well. They've dealt with your state of capture cases during the past financial year. I think they've finalized 6. They've dealt with your staying off. But the fusion center that is operating nationally, you need to ensure that even in the provinces, you've got SCCUs that are supported with financial investigation. If you look at what IDEC is doing now, IDEC, they are talking about the technology or digital evidence unit that they want to establish. SIU, they've got forensic accountants, they've got analysts. We need to provide the SCCU with the same support in all these provinces so that they are able to have the investigations that they are dealing with, focusing on intelligence or on intelligence-led and following the money. And when we go to court, we know that we've done sufficient investigations when it comes to financial investigation. So SCCUs also have a problem, Minister, with special directors who are just supporting. It's a very senior position, a special director. It's at the level of a DPP. Special directors with a number of corruption cases that we are having, they need to be actively involved in supporting the investigations and the prosecutions in the SCCUs. Then I will go, Minister, to organized crime, your organized crime component. I'm taking myself as an expert when it comes to issues of organized crime. And we are about to face now the mutual evaluation. We have exited the grey listing, but we are not, there's no time for us to celebrate. 2026, FATF is coming again, and there's going to be an on-site visit in 2027. By next year already, we'll be starting giving FATF information. So we need to prioritize organized crime, ensure that we are doing, there is about 99 cases, if you look at the report, 99 cases that they've enrolled, which are organized crime cases. From the 36 cases that the NPA has finalized last year on organized crime, we don't have a lot of cases involving your enablers, your professional enablers, those persons who are attorneys, who are your accountants, who are your estate agents, who are your company and your trust service providers, who are not really involved in the commission of corruption or any predicate crime, but they are just being paid a fee to assist criminals in disguising their crime, the source of their illegitimate funds. So we need to ensure, Minister, that we continue training our prosecutors so that we increase those cases of trade-based money laundering, third-party money laundering involving professional enablers. But in organized crime, Minister, I think the NPA is doing very well, other than supporting that team and ensuring that there is training. It's what we are doing even with this foundation. We got SIPSI. I initiated to the NPA that let's got SIPSI to come and get involved and teach us about beneficial ownership, information. How do you understand? How do you unpack complex structures and know the person behind that structure? Because we've got a lot of rich people, politically exposed persons who are poor in terms of paper, but they are really sitting with a lot of assets through companies registered in the names of their relatives. So those are the things that we need to be able to deal with. Then I'll move from organized crime and go to the Special Offences Unit. The Special Offences Unit, it's one office, Minister, where they are saying for the past 2 years, we have increased the number of cases that we have taken to court by 44%. This is what I want to see, cases going to court, other than cases just being closed and withdrawn and nothing happens to them. So they've done a lot and they've increased cases that have gone to court by 44%. But the biggest issue is that 2020 we said gender-based violence, it's a pandemic. And recently, whilst we're hosting the G20, women said it's not enough. And the president has now classified the issues of gender-based violence as a national disaster. So what needs to follow now is the declaration. We need to ensure that in terms of the Disaster Management Act, there is a declaration through Government Gazette, there is funding, there is a plan from all law enforcement agencies involved, and I'll work with those law enforcement agencies to ensure that this agenda is really effective and we're able to see the results. We've got a plan as a collective from Department of Health, Police, and NPA, Social Development, to ensure that we've got a plan that speaks to us now, saying this is a national disaster that has been declared. So that's an issue that is very critical. We've got Thuthuzela care centers that are operational, but it's important, Minister, that we look at where they are located. We can't be pushing numbers and say in terms of the medium-term development plan, we're supposed to have two new Thuthuzela care centers every year and not look at where they are located. They need to be close to people who are living in the rural areas. We need to ensure that really they also get that one-stop service in the rural areas. So it's critical that we look into that. Then looking also in the NPA, Minister, what is critical at the moment and for the country is the issue of protecting our whistleblowers. The issue of protecting our whistleblowers, it's very critical and needs to be a focus. If you look at the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, they've issued a paper and they've made recommendations. And one of the recommendations is that if we were to establish an office that is going to run with the matter of protecting our witnesses, that office needs to be the SIU. To me, it is also very critical, Minister, that we don't have a lot of resources in the country. We need to avoid duplication. We need to assist those offices that are already existing. In the NPA, we've got the Office of the Witness Protection Office that has had 100% success rate. They've never had a witness that has been killed under that protection. But you can't force also witnesses to go through that program, they need to agree and volunteer to say, we want to be part of it. So it's important that we look at the lessons learned, that officers assisted a number of countries to learn from us. We need to sit down with them and say what works and can we amend our act so that you don't only look at the witnesses, but you also cover whistleblowers. So those are the issues that I think are critical. But the issues of FATF, I think I can add a lot of value to ensure that in the prosecution, we prioritize our terrorist financing cases. We don't have a lot of them, but we've got a number of cases that have been, a few cases that are under investigation, but what we want to see, I didn't see even a single case that has been finalized. We need to ensure that we've got that unit, and it was working well, Minister, when it was located within the NPA. Now it's sitting in the DPPs, and you don't see a lot of progress. So it's something that I can, if I were to be appointed, I can speak to the management and see how we can resolve it. Because if you don't deal with issues of terrorist financing in our country, we don't have issues of terrorism. But if you don't deal with terrorist financiers in your country, the countries who ends up being victims of the funds that goes and support terrorism in their countries, they will retaliate and will end up really having cases of terrorism. So it's very important that we prioritize those matters. We have the fit for purpose tools from both the police intelligence as well as in the NPA to prioritize those cases and take them to court successfully.
Thank you very much. I think you were now alluding to that vision.
Yes, Professor.
Yes. What would you say, looking over the years, has been, in your diagnosis, the problems within the NPA so that your solution is fit for purpose, as you said?
Yeah. The problem of the NPA, looking at my involvement, there was a lot of time, Professor, when the NPA was not sufficiently capacitated, where we'll go and ask for more funding to have more prosecutors, and that funding won't be forthcoming. So if you are prioritizing fighting crime, you need to have the police. And it was quite sad, Professor, because it had to take the Financial Action Task Force to come and tell us as a country that you need more police to deal with financial crime. You need more people in the FIC, you need more people in the prosecution to be able to deal with these matters. So it's very critical that I think Advocate Batoyi was able really to push and be successful in getting prosecutors to be supported. Even the aspirant prosecutors program, there was a time for years where that aspirant prosecutors program was no longer running because there was no funding. So you can't prioritize crime and you don't prioritize capacitating your prosecutors and your police officers. The issue also of training, if we need to focus on ongoing training of our police officers. Not every police officer, even a police officer that can say, I've got an LLB, not every police officer can be able to analyze a bank statements in a corruption case. So they need to be taught. We need to develop more skills of financial analysts, financial investigators. And we're starting to talk about those skills now, and we see them working in the SIU, and the IDEC is also trying to attract those skills. Those are the skills that we need in order to be able to succeed in winning the fight against financial crime, corruption, and even organized crime. Also, the issue of really the tone from the top, the tone from management needs to be a tone that is supporting prosecutors instead of saying, we're now arresting you, what have you done? Or people are captured or whatever. It needs to be a tone that says, you are my prosecutors, I support you, but still hold them accountable. it is critical that they be held accountable. Prosecutors can't go to court when they haven't consulted with the victims, can't go to court when they don't know their case and they don't know their law. And if they don't know, we've got senior deputies in all the offices that are available to assist. They need to say, can I be assisted? This case is too big for me. Can I get a senior person, a senior deputy to come and assist me? So the moral of the prosecutors, they need to hear that the country respects them, the country cares, and they've got leadership that is behind them.
Thank you. A follow-up, Minister. The role of the NDPP is the one where you have to deal with a lot of pressure and many interested parties. The stakes are very high. Can you take us through any instance in your career where you have had to deal with a dilemma of pressure from your authority or from powerful actors, and how you dealt with that? Because you'll have a lot of that within the NPA at its helm.
Yeah. Throughout my period in the NPA and even in the FIC, I've never really encountered a situation where there was pressure that I would conclude that is interfering with my functions. If there is pressure, if there were pressure, it will be pressure really on senior leadership wanting to see things getting done. But it's very important. It's very important that we have a credible NPA that has gone through ethics training, NPA that has gone through even the assessment by our state security, so that we know that they've been cleared. We've got the right people. Assessment that will even, we collect a lot of information in the country where we ask, especially people who are sitting at SMS, to say, give me information on your assets and whatever, but the verification is not really that much. We're not good at verifying that information. So it will be critical that we also look into that to ensure that we've got the right people in the NPA, not people who can be infiltrated by organized crime, as we are hearing at the moment, that the police are infiltrated. And there is mention of prosecutors, but it's still allegations. It's not something that has been investigated. But as a person, I'm not a person really that you can easily influence. I'm a very strong and a fearless woman. You can't come to me. Some will say I'm arrogant. I'm not arrogant, Minister. I'm a Zulu woman who respects a lot. But don't treat me with disdain, and don't, I'm that kind of a person. I'm strong, I work very hard, but yeah. It's not the NPA really will be guided by what the Constitution says. We are accountable to Parliament, we are not accountable to any politicians. And the law is very clear in terms of what the relationship between the NDPP and the minister. There have been court cases defining what that relationship should be looking like. It's a relationship of concurrence, it's a relationship of ensuring that the minister is kept informed, and when the minister asks things, we are able really to respond. But it's not, court cases will tell you that the minister in the case of, it was the case of freedom under law and the NPA, it involved the case of Celebi, where the court said that the minister is not responsible for the case management of the NPA. The minister can't say, yeah, get involved in case management issues and say, do this by this time and not do this by at this time. But yeah, I hope I've answered that. I've been in the FIC. You have never heard of any issues about the interference or me playing politics. We work with politicians because we need to be reporting to them. There needs to be concurrence. There needs to be meetings. They've got the right to ask questions because they can't fold their hands and say NDPP is independent. But there are always checks and balances guiding that relationship, and there's even case law. Yeah.
Thank you. My last one for now is you have this backlog of cases, some going back to the Truth and Reconciliation, the Zondo Commission, and I'm sure the Madlanga Commission ad hoc committee is also adding more. Whilst also at the same time, the major changes globally are introducing new forms of crime. As other countries clamp down, for example, on narcotics, they might see vulnerability on our side. What strategy would you deploy to deal with expeditiously dealing with this backlog and the case flow management in terms of prosecution that has not yet been deployed now?
Yeah. When it comes to the commissions, it will be very critical for me to prioritize that and check what's happening, with those cases. What kind of support really I can offer in order to ensure that those cases, they move with speed. But with what's happening now, Professor, when we assessed, we're saying we're cleaning up. After Zondo, we've got Judge Zondo, and we've got these recommendations, we're cleaning up. The Madlanga Commission is revealing to us that we haven't cleaned enough. There's still more work to be done. And it's a situation really where fingers are even pointing at law enforcement agencies, correctional service, and all that. So it will be critical if our way to be appointed to assemble a team, that will start really listening listening to the evidence that is being heard in all these commissions from day one to date, and start really analyzing that information and being able to say what is it that we'll focus on, especially those cases where people are even killed and eliminated so that they don't testify. So I don't think you'll have to, we need to wait until Justice Madlanga is saying, here are my recommendations. We still need to start now assembling a team and ensuring that it's the team of the right people. We have vetted them, and is starting now to listen to that information and getting it structured. The issue that we are facing, we need to learn from our experiences. The issue that we are facing with the Zondo, there was a lot of information that was not even structured, that we need to get it structured in order to be able to use it in court. So even the issue of from these commissions, we need to start now structuring it and being able to say this is what we can use, this is noise, this is hearsay, or even if this is hearsay, we can be able to really corroborate it through these means. So it will be critical really to prioritize on that commission so that we don't have Justice Madlanga after 5 years singing the very same song that Justice Zondo is singing, that I did work but people have not been prosecuted. So that will be a priority really for me.
Thank you very much. Is it a follow-up so that I move into the management? Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, Advocate Kanyile. Let's just go back to your vision a little bit and ask if you consider what you know about the NPA, what you know about the law enforcement value chain, what you know about the current priorities within the country, and your recognition of what the international developments are. What would you prioritize in the first 3 years? And what do you think would be your biggest impediments, and how would you deal with those?
Yeah. Sexual offences matters will be a critical one for me. I've already mentioned it. There's progress, but there's a lot to be done, and there's a lot of planning and engagement on what needs to be done after the announcement, starting with getting it declared. So sexual offences, it's number one for me. Number two, it will be the grey listing, ensuring that we don't really find ourselves entering into the grey list again. If you remember when we were assessed in 2018, I assembled a team from the FIC. I was appointed in 2018 Same year in 2018, when I was appointed, I assembled a team that was led by Mr. Phineas Moloto to start really doing education and preparing the country for the mutual evaluation. And we set up a number of streams focusing on all the 11 immediate outcomes. And that team is still in existence and is reporting to National Treasury because we formed the IDC, the Interdepartmental Committee. So the FIC was very instrumental during my tenure in the FIC to ensure that we get prepared. But our preparation, it was quite late. We had not done a national risk assessment. I championed also the development of the national risk assessment. We finalized the national risk assessment on money laundering and terrorist financing. We need to review our national risk assessment now so that it covers proliferation financing. So ensuring that we don't go back because we are now seen as having amended the laws, but those laws have not been implemented. After we agreed, when we agreed that, or when FATF came here, we didn't even have beneficial ownership registers. We've got them, but the issue, how effective are they? Are they being used by law enforcement agencies? So as I'm saying in the training that I'm doing, I got open ownership. I spoke to the NPA and other consultants and I said, let's get open ownership to come and speak to the prosecutors and come up with case studies to say, what tells you that this person is a beneficial owner of a company? So the issues of ensuring that we prioritize the cases that we are saying in court of money laundering and terrorist financing will be very, very critical for us. The third thing that the third issue that I will prioritize is to ensure that we build up from the fusion center that is existing in the FIC, and we have the provincial fusion centers in the provinces. That I won't be able to do alone. I will have to ensure that I speak to the FIC, I speak to, we also have crime intelligence, I speak to SARS, I speak to all law enforcement agencies, and we identify a few provinces where we can start really having these fusion centers and allowing SCCUs to benefit from the financial intelligence in their cases. Those are the, I will also prioritize communicating with the DPPs, having meetings with the DPPs, because you cannot plan alone and run alone when you haven't sat with the DPPs to understand what the challenges are. So my first thing will be a meeting with the DPPs and visits in their offices to see what is actually happening.
Maybe as a follow-up, at the end of year 3, say you're appointed now, at the end of year 3, and you look back, what would you want to see as having been the achievements of the NPA under your leadership?
I'll be happy to see that we've got prosecutors who are able to deal, who've got Ubuntu, and they are able to deal with victims of crime. That when the victims of crime, they come to a prosecutor, they feel at home. We've got court preparation officers, but court preparation officers, they don't really take over the functions of prosecutors. I would want to see prosecutors who are proud of their profession. And you see by the way they walk, by the way they address the court, by the way really they do cross-examination, that these are prosecutors who have been polished, who have been trained, and they love what they are doing. And I will also want to see that our country really looks good. We are not a country that is seen to be really leading on a number of bad things. One number, we look good when it comes to a number of murders and whatever. We need to have a country. It's the only country that we know, and if we don't fix this country as a collective, then I don't know what we will be doing. But I would want to see really a country that is doing better on its higher risk. And those are the higher risk areas that I've mentioned: sexual offenses cases, your corruption, your organized crime cases, and your murder cases.
Thank you. Mfundisi, Advocate Nissen.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, Minister. Two things. The one will be a follow-up on what my colleagues have asked, but the first one is one that you raised earlier on about the ADRs, because the perception will be created that, you know, you can do something, and especially in petty offenses, there will be no consequences because you'll shake hands and you walk off. But the whole issue about non-custodial sentences, because that does create the perception that you cannot get away with it. So it is community service, and it is also maybe, I don't know whether we still have the tracking thing, and house arrest and reporting. Is that something that you will be looking at as part of just not simply an ADR where, or mediation where people say, yeah, I can do things and it's over, but you know that people will say, if I do something wrong, there will be some consequences, and maybe in terms of non-custodial sentences that will ensure that the person realizes that I have done something wrong and I need to correct it.
Yeah.
That's the, it's okay?
Yeah, I've clarified that it will be for petty cases, but we need to ensure that we broaden the scope and we do adult diversion. But adult diversion, there is a process there. It's not an easy win. There is a process of even involving professionals. Prosecutors can say, you've got anger management issues. Before we finalize this case through diversion, go through an anger management program. And it will be when there's a report that says you have gone through that program successfully and you are a person really who understands the consequences of your actions, of your emotions, before the prosecutor says we are withdrawing. For serious cases, for serious cases, I've been saying, I gave an example and said, if a minimum sentence, it's 3 years. Prosecutors must be open to persons who are saying, I'm coming clean, I don't want to waste the court's time. They must be open to say, instead of 3 years, I'm going to give you 1 year, 5 months, or 1 year, 6 months. I'm not saying people must go scot-free, because that would not really be doing anything in resolving the high levels of crime in this country. It's not, yeah, the intensity it's at a high level, and even the volumes on its own. So that's not where I'm going when it comes to these crimes. If you need to see with the corporate ADR, I've said it's not an issue of I've self-reported. I've got now systems in place to ensure that we don't repeat. I'm saying if there's a director that was involved in that corruption, that director must face prosecution. If there's a junior person or whatever in the office that were involved, those people must face prosecution. And over and above that, you pay.
The second one, Mr. Minister, to Advocate, with all the priorities in what was asked of you, what would you be doing, what next 3 years, or next, if you're successful, what you'll be doing, and you eloquently explain what you're going to do. But what is important, and you started off with talking about your leadership and so on, but what is important, it is you need a motivated people. And you need to be people to be inspired. You need people to know that what I'm doing is worthwhile. If in the event that you get, and you find yourself in the organization, you are in the organization, that you will identify, maybe you find a low morale, you find a divided staff or whatever, what would be your plans to be in order for all those business units that you talk about, all the plans that you have in order for them to be successful? Because all of those priorities can fall flat if you do not have an inspired and a motivated and a cohesive staff that believes in the vision and will carry the vision.
Yeah. You know, being a leader, some people will say you are born a leader, but you are also taught now to become a leader. So in those cases, it also assists to take managers through a leadership development program, or through some, even if it can be short training, so that they know how they deal with people. But at the same time, if you are the National Director of Public Prosecutions, and you see that you've got a director or a leader that is a risk because that person has his own issues that end up impacting on the staff, you need to be able, I will have to be able to deal with that fearlessly.
Mr. Mtlo.
Thank you, Minister. Advocate Kanyile, I'm riding on Prof's question on case backlogs, which incessantly rear its ugly head and is an elephant in the room of the criminal justice cluster. Mindful of multiple role players involved, but I'm looking at it from the angle of the intervention that was created by the then Chief Justice Mogoeng on norms and standards. And there is case flow management, which among others, other intervention brings about or establishes the National Efficiency Enhancement Committees, cascading them down to local level, and also coming up with timelines within which matters must be finalized. But the reality on the ground is that these challenges are still persisting, they are still ongoing, and they're still there, despite these interventions. Now, what systems would you put in place to ensure that we manage this space and ensure that we bring about speedy finalization of the matters? Because with speedy finalization of the matters, this goes to the center of the right to a fair trial. How would you manage that space and bring about a policy that will efficiently address case backlog?
Yeah, the issue that you are raising goes back to the mission of the NPA, giving justice to the victims of crime, but working collaboratively with the stakeholders in the private sector. Law enforcement agencies have indicated that there are a value chain. So the backlog in the courts is not mainly caused by the NPA. So it's important that when you fix the problem, you fix the system, because it's a number of agencies that are involved, from the police, the quality of investigations, to prosecutors, to even the judiciary. Legal aid also is very involved. I'll give you an example. We had these norms as just that, and I've touched on them, that if we investigate and we focus on investigating fully before we enroll a case, we'll be able to implement the norms by having a person pleading 3 months after the first appearance. But it's critical, that's the function of the DPPs. It's critical for the DPPs to drive that process. It's critical for the DPPs to even attend those meetings. So that will be the role of the head of NPS, to ensure that that happens. And if there are matters really that are brought to my attention, because I will be interacting at the national level with the head of Legal Aid Board, I'll be interacting with the head of the courts and to find those solutions. But I can't find the solutions alone when the DPPs and the police provincial commissioners, legal aid, are not playing out their role. They need to collaborate and function as a team at a provincial level, and we need to be able also to close gaps at a national level. I'll give you an example of what prosecutors really are doing. Prosecutors are trying very hard. In the Free State, Minister, we used to have rescue teams. We're calling them rescue teams, where and I'll be part of those rescue teams as the DPP, where we will go to courts, visit courts, and ask from the police all those cases that have been withdrawn in court and screen them. And we'll be shocked that we'll find a case that is supposed to be on the roll and it's withdrawn. And the instruction that the prosecutor gave was saying follow up on 1, 2, 3, and 4, but it ends up being withdrawn. It's a case that was supposed to really come back to court, but it's withdrawn. But if you are able to screen those dead cases, you are able to even fight corruption, because you might find that there were people who were paid to have that case withdrawn. Once you bring it back to on the roll, whoever was paid will need to pay back. So the screening of those systems, people need to come up with solutions instead of problems. DPPs, if they've got problems, they need, in terms of the, if you read the annual report now of the NPA, Shamila is asking the NDPPs to even give report on their activities in their provinces, to say this is what we are doing to fix problems. And those activities are activities really that are focusing on the risk, on the high risk that are facing that province, and trying to address them as a collective. So we need to have prosecutors who will think out of the box and say, let's go and resolve these issues. Let's go and sit down and work on these issues. And I will ensure that the DPPs come with answers instead of coming with problems, comes with initiatives that are aimed at showing that we are prioritizing sexual offenses cases. If you ask them to do that, you'll hear people saying, we now have a dedicated week, or this is what we are doing to ensure that we've got most of these cases getting more time in our court rolls. So that will be the function of the NDF, of the DPPs, but as the DPP, I will ensure that I support where I need to support. But it's the issue of the interagency collaboration. If prosecutors are not working in collaboration with your legal aid board and are not able in the project that we're having, Minister, the rescue team, we're able to identify even cases that we can take to Legal Aid South Africa and say, can you speak to the accused persons here and see whether we cannot finalize these matters by way of a plea? I don't know whether I've answered you. The standards are there, is for the people to implement those standards and oversight from the leadership, including myself, to ensure that those oversights are, those measures that are in place are implemented, and there's effectiveness as a result of the implementation of those measures.
Thank you, Minister.
Proceed.
Thanks, Minister. Advocate Kanyile, I'll just be brief. I just want to know what is fundamentally attracting you back. Why I say that is because you are at a place where you are globetrotting, you are going from conference to conference, sitting in boardrooms with very influential people, being regarded as an authority somewhat in certain areas of finance and corruption and money laundering, etc. Yet, when you look at this position, it's a slog. It's you know, some people have used terminology like, oh, it's a poisoned chalice, etc. What's attracting you back?
Yeah. I'll be very much frank with you. I normally tell my kids and my friends that since I've countries that are saying, we want to take over, we are friends of South Africa and we want to assist them, it won't save us to be proud and say we don't take funding from anyone when we need that funding and when we need to train our people.
Maybe even just to, she's correct, just on the issue of funding, because sometimes it's important. We become the buffer as the department. I am coming in because there's been quite a number of people who came in the public domain to say, can NPA receive private funding and global funding? So as the department, we become the buffer, including for the judiciary. So we become the conduit of receiving that, like the High Court, Johannesburg High Court, upgrading precinct with the NGO. I thought, let me clear that one so that it's not seen as members of the panel saying no, but also this side as if we are compromising NPA, because she's speaking about how it's being done. No, we do vetting for it. We do vetting. So we open, and like she said, it's government to government on the project that we're doing with NPA.
Thank you, Minister.
You're the last one.
I'm covered.
Okay, Mfundisi, take us through the public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Advocate, there were a number of public comments, and I'm sure you've seen it. We've received over 200. In your case, there were 8 in support of you and 0 against you. And they speak about your leadership, your dynamism, your international and your national contribution, your transformative approach, but also there's only one that says cautiously supporting you, but there were 8 in support of you and 0 against you.
Thank you. I didn't see the 200. I think I saw the ones that were written and forwarded to me, and I had to respond to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you received positive comments, mainly. Nothing much afterwards, but I think is that work. You'll be happy to note that we've come to the end.
I'm so happy, Minister.
I can see the way you're looking at me. It's like, there she goes again, paging her file. Thank you very much for availing yourself for this interaction. And we have come to the end. It was quite a fruitful engagement with you. And we thank you very much for making time.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day.
Thank you. Thank you, too.